Let's go ahead and get started, since it is after 6 o'clock. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the City of Independence, I welcome each of you in attendance, as well as those of you who may be watching on City 7, to the October 9th meeting of the Independence Planning Commission. Before we begin our meeting, let's say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I think I'm going to skip the little prepared speech I give, since I think everybody here has probably heard it at least 100 times. So why don't we just go ahead and proceed into the agenda. First thing on our agenda is in the consent agenda is case number 18-320-05, final plat of Voorhees Vale. Voorhees, thank you, Stuart. Voorhees Vale PUD 14th plat. Is there any report from the city that you want to give, or are we just going to go ahead and vote on it?
This is a consent agenda item.
Okay.
We could talk about it if you'd like to, but not necessarily.
I don't necessarily want to do that. Just didn't want to steal your thunder. So we're ready for the vote, unless the commission has an objection to have it being on the kids. Yes, we do. Can I have a motion, please? Anybody? Except me.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Billy.
in the matter of case number 18-20-05, Voorhees Vale PUD 14th plat, 12709/12711 East 47th Terrace Court South, I move that that be approved as presented.
I second.
Mr. Preston moved and Ms. Ferguson seconded. We're ready for the vote.
Commissioner Ferguson,
Yes.
Commissioner Goldsberry. Yes. Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Commissioner Wiley,
Yes.
Chairman Ashpaw.
Yes. Case number 18-320-05 has passed. Continue to case number 18-200-08, special use permit for 3114 South Weatherford Road.
Edries requests approval of a special use permit to operate a used vehicle sales business at 3114 South Weatherford Road. So as you can see from the vicinity map here, we're talking an area about a block and a half west of Nolan Road on West 31st Street South. Okay, it's not working. I'll do that. You can see the area is zoned industrial on all four cardinal directions around. This is an aerial photograph. You've got to the north truck, trailer, and service sales business. To the south, you have a warehouse. To the east, you have a steel product supplier, and then a large undeveloped lot to the west. The applicant intends and to operate this used car sales business from a property where there are two buildings on a half-acre lot. The southernmost building is the building where the car business would be operated on, and then operated from. And there's a existing business located on in the building to the north. Both of the buildings cover most of the track, so there's a little area for landscaping or outdoor display of vehicles, and very little area for customer and employee parking. The applicant intends to keep all the display vehicles inside. The small parking area available or along the right-of-way will need to be properly signed and striped for handicapped vehicles and other spaces. Applicant has 20 years of experience in auto sales. This operation will include mostly high-end cars. 90% of the sales will be wholesale and intended for export. Planned improvements to the site include painting the building, installation of a security system, and of course, and some general maintenance that needs to be done. So real quickly, we'll go through the pictures here. This is looking directly west at the property, at the building, through the garage door there, and you can see the parking area right out front there where the truck and the vehicles to the north are. This is the north side of the building, and you can see the separation from the other business that lies to the north on the same property. You can see the two buildings there on the west side of this left side of this picture, looking northward toward West 31st Street. This is looking east at the steel product supplier business to the east. This is looking south down Weatherford at the warehouse that's located immediately to the south of the property. And this shows the gap there in between that building and the applicant's building there on the right. Staff recommends approval of this application with the following conditions. The existing paved surface must be properly restriped. The ADA parking space shall be updated to reflect the current city and national standards for marking and signage. Only one ADA parking space is required. And number 3, all improvements shall be completed prior to a city license being approved for the business. And that's my report, and I'm ready to take any questions you may have.
Do any commissioners have any questions of Brian? I don't think we do. Thank you. Will the applicant please come forward and state your name and address for the record, please?
Hello, my name's Ed Reese. I live at 16411 East 36th Street in Independence. I've been in this business for a long time. The type of cars that I sell, obviously I wouldn't leave them outside overnight. I wouldn't even leave my pickups outside overnight. So it will be, everything will be inside the building. I wouldn't even have to have the special use permit if it wasn't for the fact of one requirement, and that was the 1 acre, and I think I have 3/4 of an acre there. So I'm just a little bit short of that, and that's why I'm here to get the permit. I believe in that, correct, Brian? So any questions you have, I'd be glad to answer them.
The only question I would have is you, of course, know what the city is recommending, and you're okay with doing all that?
Oh, that's not a problem at all.
Okay. Okay. Does any other commissioners have questions of Mr. Reese here?
Just the point of, I think I heard it twice, that the cars definitely overnight would be stored inside.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, and there may be a car sitting out front or something during the day, 1 or 2 cars, but we have limited space there, and most days they won't even come outside, they'll be inside. And we've done quite a few improvements to that building already, paint, and we're making the place look nice.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here who's in favor of this case? Is there anyone here who has questions or is opposed? Okay. The public hearing portion of this has been closed. And I would either like to have some comments from the commission or a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
for the past several weeks or perhaps even months, a plethora and a seemingly endless stream of applications for car sales, used car sales, has been entertained by this commission. And individually and almost collectively, I suppose, we have opposed it and requested some guidance as to when is enough enough, and essentially requested guidance from staff and from the city. However, in this particular case, I will not take exception for the simple reason I had an opportunity to look at the area. That area is in need of some development. Secondly, this particular vendor is going to be selling probably a highly priced product, and the preponderance of the vehicles at all times will be stored inside. And I think it simply, in this particular instance, it's a value added versus questionable value to the city strategically. In this particular case, I'm certainly in favor of deviating from what has become the norm of this commission over the so many months. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. I totally agree with that. This is back in a place, industrial area. It's not visible from the street, and I'm glad you, if you go there, I'm glad you're going to be there. I mean, I'm glad you're going to be doing this. That place certainly, like you said, needs more businesses back in there. So I'm in favor of that. Is there any other comments commissioners like to make? Okay. Can I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
in the matter of case number 18-200-08, special use permit at 3114 South Weatherford Road, I recommend approval with the stated conditions.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Goldsberry seconds. I believe we're ready.
Okay. Commissioner Ferguson,
Yes.
Commissioner Goldsberry,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Commissioner Wiley,
Yes.
Chairman Ashbaugh.
Yes. Case number 18-200-08, special use permit for 3114 South Weatherford Road has been approved. Good luck to you, sir. You're welcome. Our next case is case number 18-100-16, rezoning of 119 North Wilson Avenue.
Yes, Thomas Schroeder requests to rezone this property at 119 North Wilson Avenue from R12, which is two-family residential, to I1 industrial. The vicinity map shows the location of the site. It's south of Truman Road, east of North Wilson Avenue. This is the zoning for the site. The subject property is again zoned R2, as the properties are to the east, west, and south. As you can see, the R2 is the yellow, it's like yellow, and then the industrial, which is the purple, is immediately to the north. This aerial photograph shows the vacant site. The property joining this lot to the north is also owned by the applicant and is also vacant. Wilson Avenue is to the west, and Smith Avenue is to the east. It's that short street that comes right up to the northeast corner of the property. Go ahead. Here we're standing on North Wilson Avenue looking east into the property. It goes down a hill. It's somewhat nondescript. There's not really any vegetation or anything on it. It's a grass lot. Okay. Here we're looking west into the property from East Smith Avenue. As you can see, it's a vacant grass lot that slopes downhill from Wilson Road. Wilson Road is just at the top of the hill there. Okay. This is a triplex which adjoins the subject lot to the north. Okay. This house is on the west side of Wilson Road, across from the subject property. This is one of the city's Water Pollution Control Department's facilities on the southwest corner of the intersection of East Truman Road and North Wilson Avenue. Okay. And the applicant owns this vacant lot north of the subject site, and north of the vacant lot is a single-family home. And staff recommends approval of this application.
Thank you, Stuart. Do the commissioners have any questions before we proceed? Okay, would the applicant please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. John Carnes, represent the applicant, 222 West Maple, Independence 64050. And I think the staff has sort of laid it out here. Tom Schrader owns some other properties in the area. He owns the properties up Nolan Road here. His main business has been storage of different items for resale, not for retail, but wholesale. And if this property should be developed, I envision that it would follow along that use, basically a warehouse type setting that would be compliant with all the setbacks and other code requirements on aesthetics in the area. And as you can see, the area is somewhat mixed right now. I think that sort of speaks for itself, and in terms of its use. So I think that's about all I have to add, unless there's any questions.
Thank you. Do the commissioners have any questions of Mr. Carnes here? All right. Thank you, sir. Is there anyone here who would like to speak in favor of this case? Is there anyone here who is opposed or ask questions? Okay, seeing nobody trying to gain access, I will close the public hearing portion of this. Commissioners have any comments? Questions?
Mr. Chair, seems straightforward. It's a mixed.
Yeah.
One lot is the desired, the other one is not. I think we have an obligation to align this appropriately. So I can't see anything objectable.
Does it need to have industrial zoning to build a warehouse on it? I'm just asking.
Industrial or C3?
Okay. Is there a reason why we went with industrial instead of wouldn't we, because he didn't ask to change the other one? Is that why?
That was the applicant's request.
Okay.
It's also conforming with the property immediately to the north, which is I-1 as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
in the matter of case number 18-100-16, rezoning at 119 North Wilson Avenue, I move that the rezoning is as requested.
Have a second?
I second.
Okay. Unless there's an objection, we're ready for the vote.
Commissioner Ferguson,
Yes.
Commissioner Goldsberry,
Yes.
Commissioner Wiley,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Chairman Ashbaugh.
Yes. Case number 18-100-16, rezoning of 119 North Wilson Avenue has been approved. Next item on our agenda is other business. Community for all ages.
Good evening, Commissioners. I better speak up, Stuart. It's gonna get me. I'm Twentina Strother, and I serve as the redevelopment coordinator for the Community Development Department. I am returning to provide a recap of the Community for All Ages assessments and final recommendations. As you will recall, the assessment was a evaluation of the city's existing policies, specifically the long-term strategic plans. Can you hear me okay?
There was just a, you said your name, right?
I did.
I thought you did.
Didn't I? I did. I said my full name, actually. I said Twentina Strother, and oftentimes everyone around here calls me Tina. So we can start all over.
He's just feeling his oats. Don't worry about it.
So,
Okay. No, proceed, please. We
okay,
didn't mean to interrupt you.
however, I am wanting to provide a recap or a report from our assessment topic discussions that were held beginning April, and we wrapped up around July. However, out of that, those assessment and discussion topics came 17 recommendations. And after reviewing our comprehensive plan, our strategic plan, Parks and Recreation's master plan, we contrasted and compared those plans to Community for All Ages concepts and strategies for aging in place. And essentially, the conversation that resulted was what you all felt were recommendations to improve our city's age-friendly characteristics. So we had approximately 17 recommendations, and I am going to do my very best to provide as much information as possible to you. If there are any questions regarding those topics or the final recommendations, we certainly would be able to answer those questions, but I just want to remind you that they were a result of the conversations that we had. Just briefly, the communities for all ages are communities that support growing up and growing older together. Communities address critical issues from a multi-generational perspective and endorse aging in place. Communities supporting aging in place advocate the concepts and strategies that promote diversified housing options, social interaction, and connectivity for all neighborhoods. Aging in place allows residents to navigate lifestyle changes in the homes and communities that they've grown to love. So we did a comparison of our current policies and found that there are many existing policies that align particularly with Community for All Ages. The assessment topics were pointedly related to creating these opportunities. And a brief overview of the topic, I'll provide a brief overview of the topic. We had 6 assessment topics, and from some of them there were several recommendations, but a few there were only 1 or 2. But if there's reason to give me a halt and you want to kind of revisit that, feel free to, but I'm going to try to go through all 17 of them and introduce the topic first. So our first topic was public outdoor spaces and buildings. The Community for All Age strategy or best practice is to locate, design, and construct public facilities to allow for connectivity with neighborhoods and other destinations and enable maximum use and benefit by residents, visitors, and employees of all age. The Planning Commission's recommendation was to apply the Community for All Ages lens to the city's long-term strategies to address ongoing maintenance of outdoor spaces and public facilities and to furthermore decrease accessibility barriers throughout the city of Independence. We've had follow-up conversations with Parks and Rec, and while they did not provide a specific schedule, they were committed to maintaining and trying to adhere to this recommendation. Is there any further discussion?
I think you nailed it. I think you nailed it.
Thank you,
That's okay.
sir.
You're welcome.
Our second assessment topic was housing and commercial development. The assessment topic, thank you. The CFA strategy for housing and commercial development is to provide age-friendly housing options. Our recommendation is to continue with the development and housing standards based on the city's comprehensive and strategic development plan, which already aligns with the Community for All Ages lens, and to pursue a wide range of housing options, including universal design and accessory dwellings. I think during this particular topic and discussion, I did share with you that the Community Development Department was very much looking into accessory dwelling and universal design with our home RFP, which is our HUD funding to try and provide opportunities where we could provide a preference for developers that would be interested in creating universal design opportunities. Is there any further discussion on this recommendation? From there, we moved on to transportation and mobility. The strategy for transportation and mobility is obviously to provide community transportation systems that meet the needs of all users. Access is key. And our recommendations were to continue to enhance mobility options by providing alternative transportation solutions, continue to assess transit facilities to ensure sufficient services are provided to primary destinations and within close proximity. And I can tell you that we have, Charlie and I have taken steps to make sure that our residents are very much aware of all the upcoming changes. As far as our transportation with Ride KC, Freedom on Demand, we are currently making sure that they are aware that seniors and persons with disability are eligible for these services and that they are no longer having to schedule that 2 or 3 days out, but now they have the opportunity to have same-day service. And the application process to ensure that they have the reduced fares and rates that are applied to their situation, we're trying to make sure that that information is provided to them and that we communicate that effectively and early on. So we are doing everything we can to make sure this we move forward with awareness on this topic. If there's no further discussion, I'll move on.
Well, now just hold on there.
Yes, sir.
You know, you're showing those, and then you're explaining how we're going to, communicate that. But I'm not sure that I see that language of communication in that. So maybe it's somewhere else, but I'm just saying. I think that's real important, and maybe that does what it might mean that to a planner, but
Yeah. Well, I should add that October, well, it was effective October 2nd, I believe, that the transportation, our Ride KC Freedom or demand would be the city and the Kansas City area transportation would kind of market this to the City of Independence residents and for those that have already. So this was something that was already emerging. However, our efforts are on top of or in addition to what this has essentially already started. So we're making every effort to make sure that as they come into the community development department or in City Hall, they are aware. It's just continued engagement, of course, aligning with Community for All Ages, making sure that these are opportunities that we don't pass up. So many people are not aware that that there are opportunities for them to ride and at a reduced rate, and if they are no longer able to drive, there's a demand for such. So we're just trying to step in and alleviate any opportunities where our residents just are in a position where they're isolated, at risk, and not aware of what is available to them.
okay.
So what would you like for it to say as far
Well,
as the
if somebody's already doing it and we're just sitting there saying you're doing a great job and everything, that's fine.
Well, I certainly think the goal would be to make sure that we get as much input from you all as possible.
It can be something as simple as saying, and we continue to support and engage with the process of other agencies that are doing this. Because as you continue to say, communication's a very big portion, and so this would seem to add more support to that argument for other people, the other organizations that are also doing this. So I just don't see that language in there. So if you could add a little bit in there about that, that would be awesome.
We can
I don't want
try
you to
and tweak
rewrite
the
the whole thing.
language. However, our fourth topic was communication and participation. I think that our public information officer may have had some input on tweaking these, and it may convey more of what you'd like to hear. So when we move forward, let me know whether or not you feel like there still needs to be changes.
Okay, no, and that's fine. That's kind of what I said at the very beginning. Unless it's somewhere else, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure, because it sounded real important to you, and I'll make sure that you got that in there, okay?
Indeed it is.
All right, thank you.
So our fourth discussion topic was social inclusion and participation, and the strategy, best practice under Community for All Ages is to include all residents in developing community activities and to adapt communication to target multiple audiences.
I think you're a slide behind. Oh, there it is.
Number 4?
Got it.
So the Planning Commission's recommendations were to continue to promote Community for All Ages awareness through various methods of communication to all segments of the population, to encourage key personnel to take Community for All Ages education and programming into the community. 7 was to continue to identify and engage at-risk and isolated populations through the city to promote social inclusion and participation, create an annual assessment and reporting standard to evaluate age-friendly growth throughout the city.
I like it.
Okay.
I can't speak for everybody else, but I like it, so I'm just giving you positive feedback.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And our fifth assessment topic was civic participation and employment. The strategy or best practice is to provide opportunities for residents to be involved and keep all residents informed of city affairs and of employment and volunteer opportunities and other ways to be engaged. Our Planning Commission's recommendations were that the city will actively participate and engage community organizations, churches, nonprofit organizations to develop a central database for volunteer service opportunities throughout the city. City services, number 12, should provide information on business development alternatives that consider flexible employment practices that embraces all ages and abilities in the workforce of independence. Number 13 was to develop a recognizable community for all age symbol that represents age-friendly services in programming and accessibility. Number 14, the city will strive in as much as possible to provide special accommodations upon request for those visiting public facilities and or attending public meetings. Requests shall be made at least 48 hours in advance to ensure accessibility, large print, and or hearing assistance. Any concerns?
Nope.
And our final assessment topic was community and health services. The recommendation or best practice is for a city to offer a wide range of community and health services that addresses the needs of all ages. Planning Commission's recommendations were that the city will promote future immunization events to be sponsored by Jackson County Health Department and also inform residents of available and transitioned public health services. Number 16 was to train city staff to recognize signs of abuse and neglect and how to report it. And number 17 was to explain the creation of explore the creation of policies to expand food and nutrition services throughout Independence.
Question. If a city staff does think they recognize abuse of, signs of abuse and neglect, and they report it, who do they report it to, and how's that handled?
The Division of Social Services, the Department of Aging, or eventually. But one of the things we wanted to do first and foremost is ensure that we have staff that are participating in aging mastery programs to understand what we're looking for, part of this practice of being a community for all age that understands how do we report adult abuse and or fraud when it comes to their financial affairs, but being a safe place and a first person that they can, speak to is what we would like to have, the type of training and employees that are aware. So there's a step in between there that is very important. We have to educate and train our staff to do that. And I have to admit that I'm probably in the lead of this because of the work that I've done thus far. So I've taken quite a few training courses that would help us, but we have to kind of convey that to other staff as well. So I think we are just in the process of establishing what are the signs and steps and who to report, and essentially it probably would be best to have those type of things as far as informational materials that we share directly once we've finalized those. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Yeah, I'm sure the attorneys and everybody else are going to be on that one, because there's a fine line between thinking you see something and knowing you see something, and how to report it and what will happen after that. So I just had that question about how much training one receives before they, before they would actually report something.
It's kind of putting yourself in the position of being a mandated reporter. and there's a lot that goes with that.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Do you see it as a liability for us to position ourselves as such?
I don't know. I just see it as a liability, but I also see it as something that needs to be done, and it's, you're walking that fine line of, the reporter's taking a chance, and the person who's being reported on is also under some scrutiny, and I would just hope that there was some level of training that, made somebody as much as they could be aware of not just reporting something that may not actually be what's
Yes.
occurring, or ignoring something that is. So I don't know what you can do about that. I'm just doing my job and bringing it up.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think
Yes,
this
sir.
topic would fall under community, or this particular item, I should say, would fall under community and health services. I know it's a sanitation issue, but I think it's also a public service matter. Public restrooms, how do we mark that accommodation, the availability of public restrooms for people that are just visiting the square, walking around? Do we have?
Are you referring to specifically whether or not there's a logo identifying difference between a man or woman designated?
No.
Or are
no,
you
I'm
just saying, where are the restrooms?
Yeah, where are the restrooms?
Okay.
Where are the restrooms? What are the symbols? Do we have public facilities? And if we don't, what are we doing in terms of sanitation? I think that that item would fall in this category of community and health services.
Yes, sir, it would. Are you proposing that we add that as
No,
designated?
Right now, it's a question
I-
of availability of public restrooms on and around the square. And if we have them, how do we mark them? And if we have them, where are they? And if we don't,
Outside of being located in the actual buildings and facilities, I'm not
I hope
aware.
it's in a building.
So I'll have to defer to.
Yeah, real quick, I mean, the only thing I can think of, like Tina said, was, restaurants and stuff up in the square that have them. I don't know if they open them up to the public necessarily. The only other thing I know of is the transit center, just across the street here does have some public restrooms. We have a litany of issues with that, but they are there. I don't know if they're marked necessarily, but I know they are used. So I don't know of anything up in the square though, just where you can randomly walk into something and go to the bathroom. No. I think it's just mainly with business, and if you patron the business, obviously they typically will let you use their restrooms. So
If there's a public event that you have to get a license for, is there a requirement for porta potties or something like that?
There's the health code requirements and stuff like that. We have that special event process. If you remember from a few months ago, we kind of changed some of the ways that we did some of those things. I know that's discussed typically in an application process, is how are you providing those types of facilities to the public. So it's addressed in special events, and on the farmers market does have restrooms in it now too, but those aren't open 24/7 unless the facility is being used. So
Just a thought.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And the next steps, if there are not any additional questions or concerns, those are our 17 recommendations. It's our hope that you will pass this on and we can move forward. We'd like to submit a application for 2 Mid-American Regional Council's First Suburbs Coalition to recognize our efforts to become an age-friendly community. As you know, we already have been recognized as a bronze level for our awareness. The assessment was an opportunity to evaluate and implement additional age-friendly concepts. So that is a silver recognition. designation for the city. And that process will apply on November 1st based on these recommendations being approved and implemented. From there, the gold level designation is a part of us adding community for all ages, concepts and strategies to our master plans. And as you know, we discussed several times during our assessment topic and discussions that community for all ages is applied in the strategic plan. It is applied a part of our connectivity and walkability through various aspects of our guiding principles for the comprehensive plan. The city has done everything possible to add an age lens and provide opportunities for people of all ages. So we'll move forward with an application and submit those on November 1st for both silver and gold designation, pending the approval of our final recommendations and implementation.
Question. Neighborhood Watch Program, what's two left and two right mean?
Your neighbors. It's
You're supposed to know two to your left and two to your right. is that-
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
be able to check on them as you would with concerned family or friends.
Okay, there seemed like there was one other thing up there. Oh,
I can go through them right quick.
no, I can read them, sort of.
Okay.
I don't have my glasses with me, but it says discourage age-restricted communities.
Yes.
Is there anything in the rules, yeah, that says that we can't have age-restricted communities or gated communities or anything like that? There is gated. Come on,
I'll
Charlie.
speak on that real quick.
All right.
And I looked at Billy and laughed because Billy actually called and asked a question about this week, so
Oh.
it hit hard to home. No, gated communities, where we do allow for them, there's just a lot of hurdles that you need to go through to make your community gated. If it's a new development, we'll look at it as long as the roads are all private and stuff like that. But it's not necessarily the easiest thing to do, no.
Okay, but like an age-restricted is not something that is in the UDO?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but there's nothing in the UDO on that.
No, the only ones that we get are the ones that are required for to be age restricted for some sort of state funding or reimbursement.
Okay,
And we've had a few of those.
okay.
And I should say, the reason Community for All Ages discourages age-restricted properties and development is because it tends to isolate older residents, and the goal is for them to remain active and engage with people of all ages. However, there are many multifamily developments that restrict, because there's also an encouragement of having options. So that is an option for some seniors that consider living in an environment with people that are 55 or older or 62 or older as a plus.
Well, and it's a safety issue for some of them too. Right?
Absolutely.
So,
So I think we've covered that in the idea of having very diversified housing options.
Okay, are there any other questions or comments? If that's all you have, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next item on our agenda is approval of minutes. Anybody have any comments or corrections to the minutes? Hearing.
Can I back you up real quick on the last item for Community for All Ages? I think what we were looking for is just a recommendation to take these recommendations forward to council from the commission, since you all were the body who undertook this study. So if we could get that, it would be greatly appreciated.
So you're saying you want a motion for us to recommend this to the city council?
Yeah, so what we're doing is we will be placing a resolution on council's agenda in the hopes to move forward with this program. Council has to sign off on us moving forward in applying for the silver and gold levels. So what we're looking for the commission is just your blessing to take these recommendations forward as part of that process.
Okay. Yes. I will go ahead and make a motion that we approve what we've, the Community for All Ages recommendations, and that we pass those on to the city council for their approval as well.
I
Sound
second.
good? Unless there's any comments or objections, we're ready for the vote.
Commissioner Ferguson,
Yes.
Commissioner Goldsberry,
Yes.
Commissioner Wiley,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Chairman Ashpaw.
Yes. Well, congratulations. Another step along this pathway. You're welcome. Thank you for your help. Appreciate it. All right. As I said before, approval of minutes. We'll just say they're approved as written. And was just wondering if the city has anything to tell us, information to impart to us.
The only thing I will add is your next meeting, which I believe is October 23rd, is on. We do have a full agenda on that. We're working through all the B stuff right now. We actually just met with on that yesterday afternoon. And then from this point, we've decided that we're going to see if we can contact somebody who is more familiar with bees. I know the applicant who was here had somebody, but we kind of made the decision to get an unbiased opinion on that through that process, and we'll see where it comes. So we've got some regulations drafted at this point. We're well on our way. We just want to make sure what we have in there looks good. So
Awesome.
Okay, well, appreciate that. Who would be unbiased? Most people are either pro bee or against bees, you know? I mean,
yeah, and that's not to say that the individual and the applicants, they brought that expert in, not to say that she wouldn't. Just want to make sure, since she was hired, or they
Oh, yeah, no.
presumably was hired by the applicant, we wanted to see. Our animal control department does have some connections with some people at the University of Kansas that we were going to reach out to, and maybe get them on a conference call or a video call of some sort, just to kind of go over what we have and get some opinions on that, just so we can present that to you. Other than that, I don't really have anything else to add.
okay.
Just a quick comment. I know we were some discussion as to the hives, and I remain sensitive to the size of an area and the number of hives that should be allowed.
Yeah, and I'll be flatly honest with you. That is the main thing that we were really looking for feedback on, because we sat in there yesterday, and Stuart will attest to this. We were throwing numbers against the wall with really no rhyme or reason. So at that point, I said, I'm not comfortable bringing this forward. Just saying, hey, we think this number is appropriate, when we really don't have any experience or knowledge on the situation. So that's why we want to move forward and get that recommendation.
And
So we are working on that.
And so do you intend to write this up like most of these UDO amendments? And you're not going to just write
Well,
number one and write the whole thing? You're going to line it out?
Yeah, what's likely going to be different with this one, the UDO change that we will make will likely be very minor. It's now adding languages into the animal control ordinance, which the commission does not oversee. Only the council will review that. However, we will show you the language that we are proposing to go to council as part of the UDO packet.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yes.
so no matter what, this is going back to the city council.
They both will, yeah. Even the UDO amendment will have to go back. And then the rezoning that we have, that's still out there pending as well, too.
Right.
So there'll have to be a decision made on that as well. So it's going to be a multi-step process when we get there, but we'll have it all ironed out for you.
And that's fine. I think that would be very much appreciated by us to see the details of what you're proposing. Even though I don't like particularly how they went about doing what they were doing, I think they had enough land, in my opinion, for whatever that's worth, that they could do that as long as they weren't trying to be commercial about it. If it was a hobbyist and like Mr. Preston said, a certain number of hives, I think that's fine. But I don't want to discourage this. I think we need to encourage it to some level, but so that's why I would like to see that, because I think there's a reasonable path to go down, and I don't want it just to be a blanket statement.
No,
so.
I agree.
The challenge the commission was confronted with was the absence of guidance. And now that the regulations are being updated, will this applicant be afforded the opportunity to modify their application or their business model? Maybe, and I don't have an idea as to what is an appropriate number for whatever number of acres, but let's say for that particular one, you come up and say the maximum number of hives you can have would be 9 for that land area. They've got 20.
Yeah.
Obviously, then, their proposal for a rezoning is not going to work.
Yeah.
So, will there, before that comes back before us, will there be communications with this applicant to perhaps they need to modify their request?
Most definitely, and to be quite honest, just the timing in and itself, the meeting's 2 weeks away, but that means we have a week essentially to get this stuff done on our end, because we have to get your packets turned around and mailed out to you. So we'll do the best we can to have that communication. If it means at that point another delay of their rezoning application, whether that may be, I don't know. But we will definitely communicate with them as best as we can, yes, and get them what we're proposing, and see what they'd like to do from there. So,
Yeah, because it's almost like blindsiding them.
yeah,
And
we're trying not to do that, but we're working under deadlines at the same
becomes the
time.
bad guy to say, well, we can't approve it,
Yeah,
but staff accepted my application. Why are we entertaining this at this
exactly.
point?
And there's, we can't conditionally approve rezonings by any means, but I think it is appropriate for them to modify their application if they want to, even the night of, and just say that during part of the hearing as part of your decision, that they will be doing that. So, no, we'll be in communication with them. We're under a tight time frame right now on our end, so we're trying to get there.
Thank you.
Sure, I'm sure everybody here wouldn't want to hold that process up if you're needing us to see it, and you could get it on the internet and email or something like that, so we could look it over before the meeting. That'd be awesome.
Okay.
But if you can, I understand.
We'll get there.
Any other comments, questions of city staff from the commissioners? Okay, you got nothing, we got nothing. All right.
Thank you.
We will stand adjourned at 7 p.m.